after the official.
Yep. And then that's just.
It's coming, hold on. It's got logged in, so. Thank you.
All right. If anybody calls in for a public so I just left it as no.
Yeah.
And you can book my course. Where's my person?
Okay, we're live.
Right, Will.
Okay, I'd like to begin this meeting. We'll call it to order, so please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag of the United States of America,
of
for
the
one
United States of nation, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So roll call, please.
Commissioner Answergy,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Chairman Bunnick,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sotis Little,
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
Thank you. So then that would bring us to public comment, and in public comment, the phone number is 231-256-8103. If anyone wanted to do public comment, please call in to 256-8103. Having no rings, we will we'll move on to the purpose of the meeting and discussion and potential action. I do want to make an announcement that I'm pleased to announce that we will be reopening the Government Center to the public on June 3rd. The administration has put in place protocols to protect the public and the employees by meeting or exceeding the governor's emergency management orders. As we move forward, the health of everyone will always be one of our primary concerns. So we will open on June 3rd.
Would you like an update on that?
Yeah, and if the administration give us an update, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Last week, the governor issued another executive order that closed buildings until June 12th. However, we are in Zone 6 and Zone H, which was under a prior order that allowed openings. So on Tuesday, the county administrators of Northern Michigan requested from the governor's office a clarification on how that impacted local governments in Zone 6 and 8. So the Michigan Association of Counties reached out to the governor's office, and they received a written clarification on Wednesday evening that basically said as long as all protocols are being followed in the governor's orders, in terms of being spaced out, in terms of masks, and all the other protocols, the county governments in Zone 6 and 8 could open. We have been working on a plan to reopen for the last 2 weeks. We were planning originally on being open on May 29th this morning anyway from the previous governor's orders. So we had a procedure in place, and so we are pleased to announce we will be opening on June 2nd. We confirmed our plan with legal counsel yesterday, went over all the specifics of our plans, and our legal counsel felt that we were full compliance with the order. I did reach out to Senator Vanderwall and Representative O'Malley yesterday also to inform them, and they endorsed our concept. And so I won't go into great details, but we will open on June 3rd, which is a Wednesday. We have new signage coming. Traffic flow in the buildings will be one way. We'll allow one person in the office per time. We will have masks and gloves available for the public. It will be required. And we have new directional signs coming, and we'll proceed and hopefully be able to open with no incidents on June 3rd. We are very concerned about the safety of our employees as well as the public, and I think we have the proper procedures in place to reopen. And we've been closed since March 17th, so I'm optimistic things will go smoothly. We had a meeting with our department heads yesterday, and this afternoon I'm having a meeting with all employees to inform them and answer any questions they have. But I'm fully confident we are in compliance with the governor's order, and we will open on Wednesday, June 3rd. And almost just as important is that the fact that this morning is Will Bunnick's birthday here, our chairman's birthday here. And I have a cherry pie that's cooling down. As soon as Laurel Evans gets here, we'll have some cherry pie for our birthday boy, Commissioner Bunnick. So happy birthday, Will.
Thanks.
Happy birthday, Will.
Thank you.
Are there any questions about the reopening?
Yes,
Commissioner Sudas.
thank you, and happy birthday again, Will. I'm just assuming that we are still adhering to the gathering limitation of no more persons gathered together at one time than 10. Is that correct?
Yes, and I did get clarified on that. Our future board meetings, at least in June, can be held here. However, commissioners still have the option of doing remotely if that governor's order has been extended to June 30th. And so commissioners can be here. In theory, you could have 3 here and 4 remote or vice versa. However, there cannot be more than 10 people in this room at one time. We did reconfigure the building here in this room, and you can't see it, but we have approximately 13 chairs that once we do open and once we're allowed to have public meetings, we have spaced out chairs of 6 feet apart. But between now at least June 30th, we can have meetings with commissioners in the room, but we cannot have more than 10 people total in the room.
Commissioner Lautner.
Thank you. You're talking about one-way traffic, Chet.
Yes.
We have one opening.
Yes.
I assume you mean you'll have split the hallway in half and have traffic travel along one wall and come back another?
Yeah, we actually have barriers up. If you imagine going to the airports or movies where they have those lines with string barriers to separate people, those are actually up right now. And we'll have some new signage come in, so when people come in, they'll come in one way and exit the other way. The only door open to the public will be the main entrance. The door for construction codes will be for employees only.
All right, well, we'll skip there. I just expect it'll still equally for, easy for handicap. Well, it'll still be handicap accessible.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, we have done that. And actually the way the carpet, if you look at the carpet, the way it is in the hallway, it's actually spaced out because there's gaps with different type of carpets entering each office. And actually it's fairly easy to do that. And so there's gaps where people can come into each of the departments. We will limit it to 1 person in each department at one time. If there are more people, they have to wait outside the hallway and be 6 feet apart. But we'll have signage up for that. All people coming in the building do have to have a mask. For those that do not have a mask, we will have masks and gloves available for them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the opening? Well, then we'll move on to agenda items. And so the first one is the Lyft Internet Futures Team committee update. And I think we have Mr. Ray Rapine and Barbara May here.
Actually, well, we have David Edelstein and Tommy Hills to speak about the Lyft committee agenda item.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I'm way down here. You're
All right.
right. David Ellis, Thomas Hills. I guess. Sorry, I was looking at the top of my list. Thank you.
That's all right.
Sorry.
We'll pass it on to David to start the agenda item and take it away.
Hey, good morning.
Sir, before you start, Will, you
Yes.
broke, too many people were trying to talk. Could you tell us again David's last name?
Yeah, it's David Edelstein and Thomas Hills.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry
Good
about
morning and happy birthday, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present to you again. I presented to you a couple of times, I think. And basically, I want to bring you up to date on where Lyft has been and where we think things are with the internet in the county. As a reminder, the Leelanau Internet Futures Team was created by the Leelanau Peninsula Economic Foundation in the spring of 2016. And we were brought together to assess the status of internet access across the county, and then to figure out how we can improve that access over time. LIFT is comprised of over 20 people. We represent the entire county. We are private citizens like myself. We're members of government, librarians, educators, business people, farmers, a very good cross-section of the county. We started our work by surveying the entire county to understand what their experience with the internet is. And we've learned that most of the county lacks reliable access to the internet. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, considers high-speed internet to be at minimum 25 seconds or 25 meg. And that's just kind of the capacity of the wire
David,
that
excuse me a
connects.
minute.
Yes.
I would just ask everyone just to mute yours while he's speaking, because we're getting lots of feedback without you being muted. And then when you're going to speak, then you could unmute it.
Thank you.
Go ahead now, David.
Thank you. So the FCC considers 25 megabits to be minimum speed that people ought to have to do all the things they'd like to do. We found that over 60% of our neighbors across the county have less than 25 megabit per second performance, everywhere from 0 up to about 10 megabits per second. And the reason is the county does not have enough fiber, actual cable, that goes from the internet provider to homes. If you're in the towns like Leland or Sutton's Bay or Glen Arbor, there's internet access, high-speed access for some of those places. But the rest of us, we don't have that kind of access. And it's very expensive to bring in fiber. So we have lots of really capable internet service providers that work across our county that use a different way of getting internet to us. And that's something called fixed wireless. And they have a wire that goes to a tower. On that tower is some kind of device, and the device transmits a signal. The signal comes to your house or your place of business, and that's how you get onto the internet. But that technology is limited, and it simply can't provide the high speed that we think we'd like to see, although things are changing in that space a little bit. And the county does not have the high-speed internet it would like to have. Now, over the last couple of years, not only have we learned what our neighbors are experiencing, but we've met with every ISP, internet service provider, that services our county. We've met with the major players like AT&T and Charter, and we've met with the many smaller internet service providers that service different parts of the county. We've met with every layer of government, from the federal government to the state government to, of course, you at the county level and at the township level, to understand what's going on, to understand what opportunities there are, and to educate everybody. We've learned over these last couple of years that reliable access to the internet is an absolute necessity. In my mind, it's like having running water or electricity. To get things today, you have to be on the internet. Again, the best way to get internet is through fiber, but fixed wireless is an alternative. We know that there's something called 5G. We believe that may be coming, but it's years out in the future. So we need to look at what's available to us now and improve the existing infrastructure. Since we've last spoken to you, we've been working quite closely with an organization called Connect Michigan and the Michigan Public Service Commission to put together a community technology action plan to guide our steps in the future. We've developed a great relationship with the Grand Traverse Band As you may know, the Grand Traverse Band is installing fiber for their own use across the county. And as they're installing their fiber, they're allowing internet service providers to tap into that fiber and provide service to communities along the way. And that relationship is bearing some very good fruit. And we're looking at how we can work together to have the band continue to expand their fiber footprint so we can serve more of the county. We've taken a hard look at the zoning ordinances across the county and the different townships to make sure that they're equitable, that they're standard, and that they make it as easy as possible for internet service providers to do business here in the county. And we've met with the zoning commissioners, and we've seen some good opportunities there as they've brought their zoning ordinances into some kind of commonality. And prior to the pandemic lockdown, we had been meeting with every township supervisor across the county to do a session like this to educate them, let them know what their constituents are experiencing, how we can all work together to get internet services even better. And we'll try to pick that up again, maybe through Zoom, or maybe after we're allowed to start talking to each other again in person. And finally, we're working with, we're assisting in the preparation of a grant that we want to apply with the Economic Development Administration to expand infrastructure to across the county to better provide fixed wireless capabilities in different parts of the county. We've learned through these years how important the internet really is to every constituent across the county. Think about business innovation. Just over these last several weeks, we can now shop the farm market online. Our different supermarkets provide online shopping. Many businesses provide online shopping. And their assumption is that the internet is available. People have access to the internet, and that's how they can do business. So it's been very crucial to our business community. Our farmers need the internet. They want to be able to have pictures taken of their fields and send their pictures to government agencies to understand how their fields are developing. They want to have sensors in their fields to look at the nutrition of the soil, look at the moisture content of their soil. They want to be able to teach their employees the latest through webinars and other kind of Zoom activity like we're going through right now. So they need the internet, and all of this kind of connectivity is needed, but across the fields that the farmers have to manage. And again, everybody assumes the internet is there. People are now working from home. And if you read the papers, many companies are now saying, you know what, working from home, that's pretty cool. It works very nicely. And it's very likely that companies will continue to allow their employees to work at home even after the pandemic has passed. Telemedicine. I had an interaction with my doctor down in Traverse City through telemedicine. Not that I was all that sick, but I didn't have to go all the way down to Traverse City. And I could talk to my doctor, and she was able to take care of me over the internet. That will definitely continue. And you know what? We can now see our families. Rather than just talking to our grandkids, we can see them. That's kind of fun. And like some of you, I'm sure you're taking advantage of all the neat cultural activities that different people right here on the same screen that I'm talking about. So these are things that we're all learning about and experiencing that require the internet. And one major area that is also being impacted by the internet is schooling. The way our children are schooled, the way our college students are being schooled, and the way some of us might be schooled. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'd like to turn this over to Tommy Hills, who's the IT director at Leelanau Schools. Tommy, are you out there?
Thanks, David. I'm here. If everybody can notice, You won't see video of me. I'm coming at you from my home internet connection in Leelanau County, and it's pretty inadequate to do a Zoom meeting from my home, even though due to my work at the schools, I've had to work remotely a lot of the time. I think what we're seeing here in the fall, especially for Leelanau County schools, is we are going to have an extreme challenge in providing full-time education moving forward without widespread internet access in homes in the area. Based on some early surveys we did when schools were first closed, we're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10% of student households don't even have any kind of access that's available to them. Part of that is due to financial need. Part of it is due to the county geography and access to internet services. And then another 25 to 50% of student households have what we would classify as inadequate internet access. What's going to happen this fall is that we are going to be under all sorts of different state mandates and guidelines that tie schools to funding. And we may be forced into situations to continue remote learning, either entirely or in some hybrid fashion, along with regular brick and mortar learning. And the circumstances that we'd be looking at in the fall are much worse than our sort of emergency closure that we had prior to COVID. The situation doesn't look good. Schools are not going to have the funds to fund people's household internet connections. We're doing everything we can to provide devices that have access to cellular systems, Wi-Fi and things like that. But it's kind of like it's like the dark ages for some people. You know, a student's going to go home or be constrained to be at home to do their learning, and it's going to be like going home to having no electricity or lights. And they're going to be completely disconnected, offline. It's really a bad situation. And we've, kind of been able to put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole during this current closure. But in the fall, things are going to change drastically. And the schools just are not going to have what they need to provide for remote learning in a sort of full capacity sense. What we've been providing has been, I would call it about 20% capacity, and we've been able to put some patches in place. We had a Leland Education Foundation, for example, came up with some money for us to purchase some hotspots for households that are in extreme need, had no access, and that was an amazing result. But it's not a financially sustainable model for schools to be providing internet access. So this is a really crucial and important thing for the education of everyone in Leelanau County. So I guess, the important thing to take away from this is that we're going to be developing a problem, an inequity within the county and our learning really soon. Fall is going to be here before we know it. And already there was a digital divide even before COVID, where students would go home and just not have the same types of access that other students may or may not have. David, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you, Tommy. I hope you can all still hear me and see me. I just had a little interruption. Just let me, thank you. So just let me wrap up, and then if there are any questions, certainly I can try to answer them. So we all know that the pandemic has accentuated our need for high-speed internet connection. And I believe, and I think we all can see, that many of the things we're now experiencing with the internet will continue even after we get beyond the pandemic. I'm a trustee at Syracuse University, and we are absolutely convinced that we will continue to provide online education even after we get past the pandemic. We'll certainly have learning in class, but we will have learning online. We'll have hybrid learning, just as Tommy mentioned. That's going to be a way of life. Telecommuting, as I said before, people are going to continue to work at home. Seeing our doctors, for people who get to the doctor, being able to see them online, that's the way things are going to continue to be. So the need for reliable access to high-speed internet is clear. We need it across our county. And I believe that LIFT has established the relationships with the ISPs, with governments, with others, to facilitate the ongoing development of the internet across the county. Thank you for giving us a few minutes to talk to you. I guess if there are any questions, I could answer them now, or Matt, I'll just turn it on back to you, or whoever should take it next.
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for this question, but it broke up and I couldn't catch it. But when David, I believe it was you, was talking about the tribe bringing fiber into the county. And then you started to say that they do something with the other providers. So are they selling their right to the fiber to other ISPs? Is that what you were saying?
I don't know the details, but I know they're allowing the ISPs to use the fiber to provide the signal to people's homes. Patricia, do you know a little bit more? Maybe Matt?
What I can tell you is that the tribe has been working in partnerships with ISPs in order to expand the internet capabilities along their fiber route. I do not know the details of their arrangements, but they are working with other deliveries of internet along the route.
Yeah, and I would agree with Matt. I don't know the details either, but I know they're in consultation with a number of ISPs. And I should mention that the IT director is part of LIFT, and he does a great job of, George McClellan, of keeping us updated where he can.
Commissioner Lautner, did you get your question answered?
Well, no, I have a question, but on the tail end of that one, then we do have some ISPs online. So could they answer that question? Does the tribe sell fiber to ISPs, or just allow them to use it?
I believe the answer was they don't really know. They know they're working with them, but they don't know if it's. Go ahead.
No. They know. Unless they don't have partnerships yet.
You're cutting out. It's hard to hear you.
Yes. I think we would have to ask the ISPs if they were willing to divulge that, but Mr. Edelstein and Commissioner Sudis Little and Mr. Ansorgi all said they didn't know.
Okay, my point is we could ask the ISPs, because I think it's a very important factor to our decision in the future if we work with the tribe to connect to all of our towers, because I believe all the ISPs are on our towers. So I want that answer for the future. The other thing I want to find out I want to just clarify. I've been asked in the past, or even told in the past, that the tribe has not gotten franchises to go through townships. And I'm sure that they have, because I know Charter has to have a franchise to go through townships. I believe AT&T does. I don't work a lot. I don't do township franchises, but I'm sure is the tribe on? Can they answer that they've gotten all those franchises in place? I just want to clarify.
We don't have any representatives from the tribe on this call right now. I don't know the details of their arrangements. What I know is that the tribe has had extensive communication and working out arrangements with the road commission as far as right of way is concerned. I would not be able to comment on anything township related.
Can we get an answer then? That would be my final question then. Can we get an answer to both of those questions?
We can work on that, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then that would then bring us to, thank you very much, Mr. Edelstein and Mr. Hills. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So then that would bring us to the ISPs, and I think first on the list is Mr. Malone from Cherry Capital Connection. Mr. Malone,
Yeah, okay, hang on, I'm gonna mute my mic, I'm sorry. Thank you for addressing my concern at the last board meeting and offering this opportunity to speak. I would like to add to Melinda's question, if I could, before I go on to the leases. I do know, because I'm part of it, we have been in negotiation with the Grand Traverse Band, along with Peninsula Fiber, which does all the 911s. We have mutual interest and mutual fiber concerns or sharing capabilities across multiple counties. Leelanau County being one of them. Since C19, the conversations have been paused, but it's just because they shut down all operation and the opportunity to meet hasn't continued. Our arrangements with other regional providers, because we are a telephone company, is called an IRU process. It's an irrevocable agreement that sets access to fiber. It could be access to meet points. It could be access to strands of fiber. It could be miles of fiber. It could be a price for point-to-point connection. There's also just straight out leasing at carrier level pricing. And that is something Lyft didn't mention, that even if fiber is available, there are multiple tiers of pricing on fiber that can be cost in the $2, $3, $10 range a meg to as low as 12, 13 cents a meg. So the price of access to that fiber is a significant deterrent, and a lot of times results in a comment being made that fiber is not available. Such as in Leelanau County, AT&T has now opened up their fiber if you have a tier 1 location to manage and support tier 2, 3, and 4 AT&T locations at a wholesale level, which is what they call their carrier division. And that brings the price down significantly, allowing for lower cost delivery of fiber to the home. But anyway, I just wanted to add value to a conversation that maybe you had incomplete information. We do not share the actual pricing or the actual details of the agreement. That's a private under NDA agreement with these organizations, but we are, at least we is willing to share to give you an insight into the telecommunications industry. To the point of the leases, which was our concern, our leases with the county for all 5 towers, we did ask because unlicensed frequencies are not protected by the FCC. And so when we enter into lease agreements, and we have over 100 leases throughout the 13 county area, we include in our leases what frequencies we will use currently or in the future, and ask for the lease itself to be the protection to make sure that our investment in the community is not infringed upon or harmed by another leasee coming in and using that frequency. And in the case of what I saw in the lease was the frequencies listed were protected frequencies in our lease. That we had some difficulty getting hard copies of back in April when you got your email server hacked. There are alternative frequencies available today by the FCC called CBRS. It does not require the county to get into a risk analysis with the lease itself, because the FCC has a method of registering those light licenses. And there's a database that's been set up under CBRS to make sure that the private sector's investment in frequencies or in their equipment is protected. Just recently, because of COVID, the FCC also has released 6 gigahertz, 850 megahertz of bandwidth that is going to be under the same guidelines as CBRS with a database and registering. So lots of potential for additional internet service providers to work in Leelanau County, and yet the existing internet service providers to have their investment in the county protected, which I think is important to protect private investment. The other concern I had was in last year when the structural analysis was done, and the county should be complimented that they did it all at one time, including all 3 internet service providers, so the cost of the structural analysis could be completed and shared across those 3, and we do appreciate the fact that they did that. We also appreciate the fact that they created proportionate fees versus usually in the WISP industry, which I am a Michigan director of WISPA, the antennas are much smaller. And the fee structure was based on 8-foot and 6-foot antennas. The administration and emergency managers created a proportionate. So if you only have a 1-foot antenna, you pay a 1-foot price. And that allowed for the smaller providers like WISP with smaller equipment to participate in the county assets. But back to the structural analysis, so we submitted what we use antenna-wise, and the structural analysis process continued. At the end of it, we realized we left out some new technology, which is a 2-foot antenna. And we were notified that in order to add a 2-foot antenna to any of the towers, that we would have to go through a complete structural analysis again at our own cost. And that kind of slowed us down a little bit, because that gave us the impression that the structural integrity of the towers had reached its wind load maximum amount that it could take, because the structural analysis was just done. And if a 2-foot antenna that weighs 10 to 15 pounds had to have a complete structural analysis completed again, we were somewhat reluctant to improve the service, because and we started going after building our own towers. And to that end, the tower building in Leelanau County has been slow due to zoning. The last township we approached to do a tower cost us $42,000 in legal fees to build a $7,000 tower. So there is still a significant issue within Leelanau County. But back to the lease, and why I asked for this meeting was understanding the structural integrity of the towers and making sure that our unlicensed frequencies that are listed in the lease are protected, and that any new leases, at least we would have a chance to review what they're going to do to make sure that our current investment is protected. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Malone? Seeing none, then we would move on then to Agra Valley. I believe that's Mr. Ray Lepine and Barbara Main.
Yes, it's myself, Barb. Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak at your meeting today. I invited Barb to be on this at this meeting just because she is the manager of the part of our company that would oversee all the build and management of the internet provision that we do up in Leelanau. She has not really been involved up to this stage. I've been mainly the focal point from our company when really being involved with Lyft. Give you a quick background on our company, and then we'll go into just a few things, try to minimize the time. But one, I apologize for the quality of my picture, but it's a good reason. I'm actually in Georgia. Our daughter is going to have our first grandchild in July, and she has a baby shower this weekend. So we snuck out of Michigan to come down here so we could be part of the baby shower. So it's a great time in our life, even despite all the COVID-19 issues that are going on. But Agri Valley Communications is a telecommunication company that has really three prime entities. Pigeon Telephone, which is a legacy landline company that's been in business for, I think it's 107, 108 years. We have Thumb Cellular, which is like its name implies, a cell phone company. We have about 35,000 customers that are in the thumb of Michigan, which is Huron, Tuscola, and Sanilac counties. We also have the third company, Agri Valley Services, which Barb is the manager of. She's also manager of Pigeon Telephone. But Agri Valley Services, which is they provide fixed broadband service, which is the key up here. Also fiber to the home, which is another possibility up in Leelanau. We have DSL, and we have data transport for people. So we have in our own area, I think we're getting close to about 1,100 miles of fiber. So we'll do transport for other providers. We'll do things for AT&T, T-Mobile, people like that. But our main focus is fixed broadband, which we've got about 2,800 customers right now in that Tri-County area. Fiber to the home, which we've got in that area, plus we expanded down into Lapeer and St. Clair counties. We got about 1,100 customers there right now. DSL about 1,800 customers, and transport, I don't know, about 130 customers. But a couple years ago, we were approached by, well, we had dealt with Tom Stevenson in Connect, Michigan years ago. And when Lyft was formed, they wanted to talk to some ISP providers, and we'd had quite an extensive experience at that. So they invited us to come up. Where we had the experience was not only in our own region, but back in 2012 to 2014, we made an attempt to go out into the rural areas to provide fixed wireless broadband. We were in 37 counties under an order, and we had a build order from the FCC because of the spectrum we used to build out a certain amount in that period of time. And everywhere we went, everyone was saying, we need internet, we need internet. Well, we got there, we put up 74 sites in the 37 counties. And in those 2 years, we just could not get the amount of customers that we needed for that internet service to work. It was a great service. We got up to 2,000 customers really quite quickly, but take even Glen Arbor, they were saying they needed it. We put up a site there and we got 5 customers. So we ended up having to actually close that part of the business. It was a fourth company. We closed that one down. It cost us probably between $12 and $15 million. So when Lyft approached us to come back up to Leelanau, I said, we'd be very happy to entertain the idea, but there are a few caveats. We've been in this situation before and we were burned. So I said, if we would be more than happy to come up and provide a service as long as we had the opportunity to, one, to prove that there was a viable business case here, and two, if there wasn't, we would be able to gracefully back out of whatever we were doing there. One difference that we have primarily, I think, with most of the other ISPs that you have in the area is we deal with licensed spectrum versus unlicensed. Unlicensed spectrum, pretty much anybody can use it. And But because they all have the right to use it, if there's interference, they don't have anyone really to go to complain. They acknowledge that they could potentially have interference. In the licensed spectrum, which we have, if there's interference, we can, through the FCC, get people to cease doing what they're doing to interfere with our signal. So what we have is we have some 600 megahertz licensed spectrum that we would use in Leelanau. Plus, as Tim mentioned, there's some other spectrum that's becoming available. This is CBRS, and that's the old citizen band radio spectrum. And what the FCC is doing is they're allowing a certain amount of that spectrum to be open access to anyone. And what they're doing in the end of July is they have an auction for what they call PALs, which are priority access licenses. And if you purchase some of those licenses, again, you have priority over that part of the spectrum. So you would not have anyone else be able to knock you out from using that. We're going to be part of that auction. We're anticipating purchasing some of that. As we get closer, we won't be able, and actually probably that's about all I can really say, that we're going to participate in the auction, because they start having rules about discussions, during those auctions. But our goal would be to pair the 600 megahertz with the CBRS spectrum. And with that, we feel we would get a tremendous reach in your county. The nice thing, again, with licensed spectrum, the 600 megahertz, it travels far. So the signal that we send can go out 5, 7, 9 miles, depending on the terrain and the foliage and everything like that. Where unlike some others, they're very limited on their distance. CBRS actually is limited somewhat in the distance that it can do, but it'll be great for taking up capacity near the towers, and then the 600 megahertz can be used for areas farther out. We are in negotiations with Matt on some leases. We'd like to try out a couple sites to see, again, to prove the business case. If that proves out to be worthy, our plans would be to move in and provide service to Leelanau. We also, again, like I said earlier, feel there's an opportunity for fiber to the home projects, where if you have a cluster of homes close enough that we might be able to put in fiber, which provides much, much faster speed of service. Fiber to the home, you can get up to a gig, which is really fast. Fixed wireless, it's probably going to be in that 25 down and 3 up. And that's good compared to what people are getting. The majority of them are getting right now. Let's see if there's anything else I skipped over. I think that's a majority of it. We're excited. We have not had a chance to speak to George at Grand Traverse Bay Band Indian yet. He and I have been playing email and telephone tag, but we fully intend to see what he can offer. So I have no insight on how that works right now. But I look to see, I think that is something that would be a great partnership if we could work it that way. Barb, with our company, has been working on internet and transport and things like that for years and years, longer than I've been around the company. And she has some great relationships with other providers too. So we feel we can leverage our resources, our experience, so that we could maybe provide a good service for the county of Leelanau. And with that, I guess I'll open ourselves up to any questions.
Any questions, please? Commissioner Lautner.
Thank you, Will. And congratulations on Dave you have on the way.
Thank you.
I have questions, but I think they're probably for all the providers. Do we have more providers going to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll hold my questions and maybe ask them all. Then.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Rittenbach.
I was just wondering, you mentioned that there an auction, and who is that auction being held by?
The auction's held by the FCC.
Okay.
And again, what it does, there's 150 megahertz of spectrum that's in CBRS. They're saving 80 of that for the general public. So everybody has access to it. There's 70, a block of 70 that they're going to provide for these priority access licenses. So if we get that, the neat thing about the CBRS, and I'll try not to get too technical, it's whereas before, like our 600 megahertz spectrum that we bought before, it is based on a certain area. We have the right to, use that spectrum in, say, Leelanau County. The nice thing about CBRS is you can use it anywhere, as long as you license that site. So if I wanted to put a site out in Phoenix, Arizona, I could put one there and license it with the FCC, and we could utilize CBRS there. It's not regionally restricted, but what we could do up here is, the neat thing is what it does is all the users go into what they call a SAS, and I forget what the acronym stands for, but they're kind of like the referee of the spectrum. All the users that are being, the activity that's going on goes into this SAS provider. They shuffle it all around to make sure everybody has something to use. I think the technology would be great to understand, but I mean, that's the simplistic part is that. So what we're looking to do is have that priority license or licenses so that we know at any given time we'll have a certain block of that spectrum available. We can't get blocked out because other people are using it.
Okay, because you also talked about interference. And would that mean that somebody else was trying to share the same frequency?
In the CBRS, the SAS will make sure that we don't have that. And with the 600, we won't have interference because we can go, like I said, we have legal rights through the FCC to stop the interference.
Okay.
Again, unlicensed, you don't have that going for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
And
Seeing none, then.
And we are planning to do a 14-day self-quarantine when we come back, just so you know, so you guys don't feel threatened by us coming back. But it's well worth it.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And then we'll move on then. I believe we have Chris, or actually, I think Jim Shelby from Aspen.
Jim Selby, actually.
Selby, I'm sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so hi, I'm Jim Selby, president of Aspen Wireless Technologies. I'm actually a Leelanau County resident. Our businesses in Maple City, and we hire several employees in the county. We actually are consultants for the broadband industry, so we've been doing it for a long time, 20 years. Because we're in Leelanau County, because we're in Maple City, we normally are not a service provider, but I thought it would be something to help the community. Glen Lake Community Schools is one of our clients, and of course, at the kickoff there, Tim or whatever, one of these gentlemen talked about, the distance learning and things of this nature that need to, get better. And honestly, Zoom meetings and things like this, we are in Leelanau County, and we are kind of been left behind. We have not gotten any American Recovery and Reinvestment broadband stimulus because, we're a peninsula and a peninsula. A lot of fiber routes don't go through our county. And so I'm trying to solve the problem. We have a fiber optic circuit there at 8521 South Bohemian Road. So, and 669 to 616 over by Miles Kimberly Park. My goal was just to try to get on the tower, to be here to try to answer any questions. With Ray talking here, we passed tens of thousands of homes passed with fiber to the premise. Honestly, guys, if you really want to do this right as community leaders, instead of trying to put up more towers or this or that, I really believe a fiber to the premise, whether the county helps with middle mile or helps, Melinda was talking about, Melinda, a lot of times franchise fees and things like that. I mean, if you're a charter and you're a multi, $100 billion company, that's great. But, Tim Malone's and these smaller guys, it makes the business case even more unpalatable. And I think franchise fees are tied in, by the way, with video and things like this. But anyways, back to the topic here is our goal is to try to get on the tower. We want to get on the Maple Tower City at minimum and try to get it around. We have been in talks with the tribe as far as trying to help them with their fiber endeavors. There's fiber optic, as you guys know, or maybe not, but the tribe has tens of miles of fiber in our county, and they're trying to figure out maybe to dovetail it into tower sites or maybe even doing a fiber to the premise themselves. I'm really here to one is that I was heard that I read on the Enterprise or wherever that the towers are saturated. This I feel like this is we just like to get up there. There's thousands of megahertz of spectrum. We don't like to where Tim was saying to set the frequencies. We use dynamic frequency selection and we use the smartness of the technology to pick the clear channels to transmit on. I think that it's our towers are not saturated. I think that that's a strategy of folks to say because they want to be the only ones on the tower, right? Anyways, we'd like to get on the tower. We'd like to help the Glen Lake Community School kids. We're just trying to be here in the community. I really would propose that you guys look at a fiber to the premise type solution. Ultimately, we have lots of trees, a lot of line of sight issues, things like this, coverage. I was here to try to get on the tower and to be here to ask any questions. So there we go.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Selby? Not seeing any, then thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so then that would bring us then to Elevate Net, which Mr. Chris Schaefer.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, first, I guess I just wanted to say we are working on getting some more expansions throughout the county now. The lockdown has certainly set us a bit behind, but we are pushing out in the county and trying to make up for some lost time, hopefully throughout June, working on dealing with the lockdown situation and guidelines in place. That being said, we have been working with a lot of the people that are in the meeting, and I think I know just about everybody. We're trying to get as many people connected as quickly as possible. I do agree with Jim that fiber is certainly a beneficial aspect for as many residents as possible. However, the feasibility situation for some of the more rural options can be something that will certainly be a deal breaker for a lot of households or some of the roads that are just not very highly populated. That is where the fixed wireless situation really can come into play and help bridge that gap. That's why they're called that last mile. But fiber can certainly, as Jim mentioned, provide a far better service as far as overall service. I know that the FCC did just reclassify broadband as that minimum of 25, and 25 is a great speed. However, that's not always available. That being said, a lot of households don't necessarily always use or quote unquote need that much throughput. So it's kind of a usage case. I always tell clients that we can sell them whatever they want. However, I try to analyze their needs and offer them lower packages if it is something that's more economical for them, because it's pointless to buy something that you don't need. Just economical choice wise. That being said, I'm open up to questions. I don't have a whole lot of extra things to add beyond what's already been talked about. I know we do have Tom in the meeting who had some things he wanted to add as well, but any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Any questions for Mr. Schaefer? Commissioner Rushton. You have to unmute it.
Thank you. My question is, how long have you been working in the county?
Good morning. We started working in the county last year.
Okay.
We've been working with the Lyft community now for 4 or 5 years. We were part of the very beginning of everything before the surveys and everything went out. We started working with the Lyft community and trying to get as much information and help along the route. And then basically once things came available, we jumped in to start providing access to the county. And we have a lot of different clients, not necessarily just for on the fixed wireless side, but video surveillance systems, phone clients throughout the county. We manage the majority of the marinas and harbors up and down East and West Bay. So we do a lot of work throughout the county.
Are you in any other communities besides Leelanau County?
We are around Traverse City, Buckley, and Kingsley. And then
Thank you. Yeah.
Reasonable deployment in northern Indiana.
Okay, so you're growing and expanding. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, well, seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. And then up next, we would have Tom Stevenson from Connect, Michigan.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't think Tom is still on. He mentioned that he had a phone call coming in from Texas, a business connection that he needed to take. So I hope that he might be able to rejoin, but I think he has stepped away for now. Tom, is that true? Are you still here?
We don't see him.
That's
We don't
what
see him on our, okay. So
He
if
may
he
try to-
comes back, we'll let him talk at that time. Would that be all right?
Be grand.
All right. So I think that concludes all. Is there anyone I've missed? No. Seeing none, then we would move on then to the Grand Traverse Band co-location agreement.
No, well,
Yes,
Well-
Commissioner Law. Yes.
okay. Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, I thank you to all the providers that brought feed on,
Oh,
where and shared with us all of that without really giving away their business secrets. We appreciate that. I did have a couple of follow-up questions. So I wanted to know, first of all, I'm going to begin with the question of, to the provider, do they feel like the county has been fair to them? Kind of a hard question. Have we been in communication with them? Have we been fair? Have we been in communication? And what can we do to encourage more? So I don't know if providers want to speak to that at all.
I can. We've primarily dealt with Matt from the county side on really talking about the leases and what kind of equipment would go on towers and things like that. Been very cooperative, very helpful. We're in the final stages of getting to, I think, an agreement that would be satisfactory for everyone concerned. So, I think one of the challenges in Leelanau is you've got the inherent conflict of, towers or no towers, and how tall should the towers be? I understand that. I mean, from our perspective, when we have the license spectrum, the 600 megahertz, the higher we can go, the further we can broadcast. I mean, we can broadcast a signal, like I said, 7-9 miles away. So if you get up like that, then that ends up being a lot less towers if you can get up higher on a tower. If you're on a 100 to 150 foot tower, obviously you don't have as much of an area that you can broadcast that signal across, but you still can. I think when you're coming up, one of the grants you're going to talk to about is putting another tower in an area that you're kind of lacking, which would obviously help. But everybody that we've dealt with has been very helpful to this point.
Good.
This is
Okay,
Tim.
Katie.
Mr. Malone.
So
You have to unmute. Mr.
sorry.
Malone, you have to unmute it.
Thank you. As I mentioned before, the administration emergency management with their proportionate lease agreement was extremely helpful for the WISPA industry in particular. And I'll reemphasize, I think the structural analysis is a bit, from our perspective, something that could be worked on. And I do believe from a county standpoint, leadership to reduce the obstacles that we still have at the township level for zoning of improvements. Although our effort after doing almost 15 years of fixed point wireless in the county is moving quite rapidly now to fiber to the home. There's still a major lack of middle mile transport. But we, with our negotiations this week, we just got an agreement with AT&T in place. They've accepted our, we bought a building in Elk Rapids to specifically be a tier 1 provider for AT&T, which allowed us to get tier 4 and tier 2 locations in Leelanau County for that transport at a reasonable price. And we're beginning in July. We're going to do the road commission, which is the group we have not worked with before in Leelanau County. We are fully confident that the road commission will respond to our permits. We know the state will respond to our permits. In an area which we call Gills Pier, we will start installing over 300 homes, fiber to the home. That'll take us about 18 months to get it completed, but we hope to start that construction sometime in July. We have 4 other neighborhoods that we're trying to acquire AT&T fiber for. Hopefully the band, Grand Traverse band, comes on board. Will make our life, give us more options. But we plan on doing at least 4 communities of that same size over the next 2 years in Leelanau County. There's a lot of work. It's going to take 10 years to get that all deployed, but we do believe strongly that fiber is where every community should be, and should demand fiber to the home. That gives us so many options, and even will, with that fiber infrastructure, enhance the ability to do 5G. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment, please?
Certainly.
If you could put fiber to every home, it'd be perfect. It'd be great. Everybody'd be happy. You'd probably be commissioners for the rest of your lives if you wanted to be. Yeah, I thought so. But it's just not economically feasible if you were trying to cover everybody in the rural areas. I mean, fiber can cost, depending, I mean, it can be 30, 40,000 a mile. So like I said, and Tim's probably got some areas where if the homes are clustered close enough together or in a little town, you can go through and make it, do it economically. But there is just, and you've got residents out somewhere that are a mile away or something from people, and there's no way you can run fiber out to every one of those homes. So you'll have, if you do a combination, which is the best, and that's what we do in our 3-county region that we're focused on right now, is we do a combination of fiber to the home and fixed wireless broadband. So that, I think, there is a combination there. You've got it. If you're trying to reach a majority or most, or if all, and I don't know if you'll ever get all, that's probably your best thing. The other thing, if you don't mind me clarifying, is everybody hears the 4G and 5G thing. Well, 4G came out, maybe 2010 or something like that. And they're still just getting all that implemented. And now, they already started to talk about 5G, and somebody even, I heard a week or two ago, some about 6G, but 5G it's off a number of years in the future. I know AT&T and some of those, and T-Mobile, they've all said they're putting their 5G thing, networks in, but all they're really doing, the 5G right now totally benefits the urban areas. It's for capacity, and some latency and some speed, so they can service the urban areas better. It does not travel far. What they're doing with it, it won't go far. Eventually, everybody will probably go to 5G because that's where the technology goes. But for yourselves, you know, we even talked on our cellular company, you know, people are going to want to see a little 5G light come on their phone, and that'll be great, but it's not going to do them anything. And I think the thing right now on AT&T, some people are saying the 4G was better than the 5G. And that's it. So it's a technology thing. I say right now it's more of a marketing ploy than anything, the 5G, but it's not going to do the rural area really much good for years and years to come.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, actually, this is Jim Selby again. So one thing I heard earlier, and as far as, because Melinda asked, is, you know, is it being fair here, was a question. From my understanding, what Tim was saying is that he owns the spectrum for those frequencies on the tower lease in his current lease agreements, or that would be an unfair thing. So we get clarification on that.
If I can, I didn't say I own it. It's unlicensed. But what I did say is that when we signed the lease with Leelanau County, we indicated what frequencies we used, and we added protection clauses for those frequencies. And so, in essence, in Leelanau County, by lease, we're the only ones that are available to use those frequencies. It was something we requested, and it was incorporated into the leases. And leases can be written in any fashion or form. We were nervous about protecting our investment in Leelanau County. There are plenty of other frequencies to use. We did not take all the spectrum, but we did specify which ones we do use. And the county do those terms.
Well, that's an unfair clause.
Yeah.
But it's a current active clause in the lease.
You know, and I'm not an expert in unlicensed because, again, we deal with mostly, well, everything's licensed until the CBRS is coming. But from what I understand is if it's unlicensed, everybody has the right to use it. So if it's in a lease, I don't know even how, if that can be enforced legally. So Jim, I think that's maybe what you're alluding to, but I think that's the case.
Commissioner Sudis Little.
I'm going to make the same comment, and thank you, Ray. That is a point of clarification. I think what's in the leases is if, and I know Chris Schaefer had the first set of lease. I know that Tim, you had a lease for one of the towers, and then later on was signing leases for access to more. But I believe, Matt, you can confirm this, but I believe the lease says that if a new provider going on the tower interferes with another provider that's on the tower, then that it's the onus on the new provider going up to adjust these accordingly. Is that a correct statement, Matt?
That would be how the interference clause is written. What Tim is referring to would be in a different section of that lease about what equipment he's using, what frequencies it operates on.
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to just also reinforce, I know if Jim Bardenhagen and some of the other farmers were here, they would say that they'd love to have fiber to the home. However, it's fixed they need for the fields so that they can implement the many new innovations that they have. That fixed wireless to the field doesn't really do much. It's fixed wireless to the home is great, but we need the the fiber to the home is great, but we need the fixed wireless for the field. So, and I want to thank all of you. We've enjoyed in Lyft working with each of you, and thank you so much for being here today, providing great information.
I can add on to that, Patricia, that's a lot of what our company is doing in Indiana and Ohio is a lot of the agricultural outreach. So we specifically integrate for the dairy farms with a company called Leelanau. We do a lot of their communication systems for robotic milk systems. We do a lot of cattle monitoring. We do a lot of movement controls, surveillance control, access control, soil monitoring, a lot of different stuff in Indiana and Ohio. And that's kind of that push that I have spoke to a few people around looking at doing that, but there's not that many very large agricultural systems looking to do that. Besides some of the vineyards, some of the agricultural environmental monitoring is a big desire for that. And that's something, unless you lay fiber all throughout the farm, that fixed wireless is that solution for that kind of an option.
Mr. Chairman.
That was Mr. Schaefer from Elevate Net, just so you know who was speaking at that time.
Mr. Chairman, my final comment on that was that I know Tim mentioned, and he is absolutely correct, that there have been obstacles presented at the township level that are difficult for providers and a challenge to them looking at providing service throughout the county. And when David Edelstein was talking about what Lyft is doing now, what he was referring to, and unfortunately it cut out about that time, but what we are doing is meeting with the Planning Commission in each of the townships. We started with a joint meeting with all the township supervisors, but what we're talking about is what are the opportunities relative to their township? Why is internet important? We had discovered that many of the township officials had not heard from people that they wanted internet, and part of it is because people don't know who to complain to. So we talked about advantages, and then we were talking about how to partner to deal with some of these things, as Tim mentioned, some of the obstacles in terms of, is there a way to come up with a common set of ordinances, at least that deals with towers and communications, that would be a little helpful to internet service providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rushton.
Thank you. Well, you've answered my question. I wondered who was doing the speaking at that time. And that's all I had.
All right. Commissioner Lautner, did you have your hand up there?
Yes, I'm going to get back to my questions. Excuse me, a lot of them have been answered, but now there's a few more, because one of my questions was to explain any concerns that someone had. And now I just have kind of some more questions, because if we have a county, as a county have signed a lease or a contract, we have to stand by that. And my concern is interference. In all of this, my concern is that we don't overload those frequencies and get interference, because there's nothing more frustrating than that. I deal with that with our TV down here, because we get 3 stations. Used to get 4, and now we don't get PBS because now it's interfered with. So it's frustrating, but that's my concern. I just want to make sure that we continue to make sure that all of our providers continue to expand in our county, continue to bring all this to our county, and not feel like that they're going to be pushed out. And then something I think it's Mr. Selby spoke about with Aspen. Is Aspen working in partnership with the tribe? Or did I misunderstand?
No, right now we have no formal arrangement.
No formal arrangement?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I guess my final comment would be more for us. When it gets to the towers, from what I've heard today, it sounds like maybe all the providers or most of the providers do have some fiber in the county or are bringing fiber. And so we should perhaps look at bidding out the fiber to our counties, but that's something we can talk about in the future. I don't think we're going to talk about that today, but that sounds like something perhaps we should do to keep everything fair.
Any other questions or statements?
My only final comment would be that, I agree, we're never going to get fiber to all the homes. I shouldn't say never. Maybe some year out there that will happen. Maybe there'll be, but in the meantime, we need all of the options and all of the tools in place to try to hit as many homes as possible. You know, and I know it's an investment for a lot of people. I know it's a big investment for me some years ago, but that's, you know, we did to get internet here because we had no other options other than fixed wireless to our home. So we did it, and it was a big investment, but it's worth it. I agree. Somebody else said that earlier. It's worth it.
Commissioner Wessel.
I just wanted to reference Tom Stevenson. Patricia mentioned that he had to step away, but kudos to Tom Stevenson and the Public Service Commission and Connect Michigan for the 2017 Leelanau County report. It was in the email that Chet Janik sent to all of us, and it does a very nice job of outlining issues with access, challenges, in an action plan. And if my fellow commissioners have not read that report, I'd urge them to do so because it's well done. It represents a couple of years worth of work and a lot of help from a lot of the LIFT committee and has a lot of good information. So thank you, Tom Stevenson.
Thank you. Commissioner Answergi.
Thank you. I'm still a little unclear. Maybe Matt can answer this question. Do our leases, do we guarantee exclusivity to frequencies on our towers to certain, you know, when we sign the lease, is that part of our lease that we're guaranteeing them exclusive access to certain frequencies and only on that tower?
That's not part of our normal lease. With Cherry Capital Connection, we had a lot of negotiation going back and forth. So there's a lot of things that were added to the lease and a lot of things that were taken away. But through that process, he did identify the frequencies that he would be using with his equipment on that tower. And legal counsel didn't have any issue with naming those frequencies.
So we did, for those leases, guarantee exclusivity?
I will have to review the language on that to say guarantee exclusivity on that, but he did name his frequencies in the lease.
Well, I understand that, but you know, I don't know what our obligation is under the lease. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
So if you get clarification on that, then I would like to know that.
Yep.
Any other questions or statements?
And Tony, I mean, that's my concern too, because, you know, as far as, you know, it's a very big investment. And if we can't use frequencies or we have to start chasing our tail because, you know, if Cherry Capital says, oh, you're causing interference, and we're, you know, it could be really hurtful, cause a lot of time. It's really not a fair, it's not fair. Or we want exclusivity too. So maybe we'll get exclusivity on Maple City Tower, and then they'll get, I mean, it's not a good lease. That was, you know, so that is something that needs to be fixed.
Thank you. Commissioner Rushton.
Is the next agenda item E? I believe you brought that subject up.
No, well, we're still at B. And
okay.
We're not down that far at all.
All right, I'll hold my comment then.
Commissioner Sudas Little.
Yeah, thank you. I too am concerned about the county giving exclusivity in unlicensed space, because that goes counter, as Jim Selby was pointing out, to the whole meaning of unlicensed space, as Ray Lapine also discussed. So I think that is important to find out exactly what that language says. And if people want exclusivity, that's what purchasing licensed space is all about, where no interference can occur and you're guaranteed to have that. But in unlicensed space, I think folks tend to work with each other and try to assure that they're not causing interference, but it isn't a guarantee according to the FCC.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then, oh, Commissioner Lautner.
Thank you. I guess I have just one more comment. Another note I wrote down, and I think it was Mr. Malone said that that we told him he'd have to run another structural analysis to add one more tower. If we just done that structural analysis last year, wouldn't we know that? Why would we have to run another for any provider?
It's been the position of the county board and our insurance company to run those structural analysis anytime equipment is increased on our tower. When we obtained the equipment list from all the ISPs for that structural analysis to be done as a group, his antennas were not included on that, as he alluded to. He wanted to plan for the future, which is great. So that's where we stand. It's been recommended by our insurance company to do this every time.
So explain to me, if you do structural analysis, you've got to get information about what that tower will hold. And then you know now what equipment is on there. So why would I say to run that? It's like continuing to take an x-ray of a broken bone. You go back to that x-ray. You don't take a new x-ray every single time you want to look at the bone, if that makes sense. So why would we got to have that information in the analysis, I would think, unless the analysis just, oh, this is all we're going to look at.
As Chris Schaefer, the Elevate Net, I can add something to that if you wish, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Mr. Schaefer.
I feel like what she may be alluding to and what I have suggested in the past is a lot of times with that analysis, you do overall structural load capacity and or wind load capacity. And then every device that goes on the tower would have a certain wind load rating. So there should be, in essence, an algebraic calculation to determine total capacity versus what is currently on that tower, and thus remaining amount or capacity available. So you should just be able to do an internal calculation based on overall wind load, current wind load, and future planned wind load. So you can then, the county can essentially save funds without having to do additional analysis every single time. However, if there is something specific or special from a secondary or tertiary board or insurance company, that might outweigh that, but there should be a calculation of overall wind load capacity and what you plan on doing it and being able to work it internally.
Thank you.
I think he's correct, but I do think that our insurance company does demand that there be a calculation made by, the engineer, not by, our emergency management. So that's what I believe is true and that's why we just follow those rules for risk management.
Maybe we could talk to.
Yeah, Commissioner Ansari.
Thank you. Well, if we have a total load, the engineer can look at that analysis and give us an opinion. And then we don't necessarily have to go through the whole stress analysis and wind analysis for the tower every single time, I wouldn't think. That's why you have the engineer do that calculation for you based on what the tower can support. Yeah, the insurance company might say, we want you to do this every time that you're looking at it, but if they have already done the calculations, the engineer can take that and say, yes, you're still within the load. That'd be my opinion.
I believe that's true, but if they do that and there's a charge, that's what we're saying is then the company that's asking to add the extra antenna would be responsible for that fee. Is that correct, Matt?
That is correct.
So, are there any other questions or statements? Commissioner Lautner.
So I think you're agreeing that with what Tony said made a lot of sense, that then the provider would just pay the engineer to do those calculations, but not do a whole nother study analysis. That's what I want us to run by our insurance company. It seems like it'd be more helpful for our providers that way.
I would agree with that. I mean, but it's still going to be how that analysis comes out and how they determine it, you know. So any other statements or questions? So then we'd go on to Grand Traverse Band co-location. What are the options there, Mr. Ansari?
We haven't had any movement on the Grand Traverse Band lease agreement. When I brought these two lease agreements before the board, there was a lot of motivation to get equipment on the tower very quickly. So we haven't had any movement on the Grand Traverse Band. And with Aspen Wireless, with the issue with the unlicensed spectrum, I think that we need to take a little more time in order to negotiate that a little further. So I think that if we were to address this at the June meeting, that would be sufficient time for us to get all that taken care of and move forward in a calm and appropriate manner.
Commissioner Ansari.
Thank you. One of the things that evidently we're having difficulty with is understanding exactly what the tribe is doing. And I just like to read something that was, you know, when they put forward this whole fiber project, I'm going to read what their chairman said. Eventually, we hope to compete directly with Charter Cable and other providers of internet, phone, and cable TV service. So, you know, they're putting, you know, they're stringing the backbone. They're laying fiber along the main roads, but you know, their intent is to compete just like other providers out there. You know, so yes, they may be having the backbone fiber and leasing that space out on that backbone to other people, but their long-term intent is also to become competitors in that market. So from my perspective, we should not treat the tribe any differently than any other provider that's asking for space on our towers. That be just from my perspective.
Commissioner Lawton.
Yes, thank you, Tony, because that's exactly where I was going, because in a previous email I can't go to right now, I thought I read where the band would not have to do a structural analysis, but yet we just mentioned them putting equipment on our towers, and they didn't pay for that structural analysis. So I guess my question is, when it was done, we weren't looking at equipment for them. So another analysis would have to be done per our understanding today. So why wouldn't we? And there again, we hadn't talked about equipment. So I think there is is that what I'm understanding? They would be another provider into the county. And if that's the case, then we don't want to harm our present providers in any way. We want a level of playing field.
I'm unfamiliar with the tribe not doing a structural analysis. George McClellan, the IT director, has agreed to pay for any structural analysis that's needed. He just has not identified any equipment that he wants on the towers. So we have not moved forward with that portion. And we haven't had any back and forth negotiations yet.
Commissioner Sudas Little.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can assure you, the Grand Traverse Band has not been treated any differently than any other internet service provider. And Matt is absolutely correct. George McClellan did say to me, I brought up to him, you know, you would need to pay for an analysis. And he said, yes, absolutely. He was aware of that and it would intend to do so. Yes, they are going the direction of becoming an ISP, but they also are looking at working with other ISPs, and you've seen examples of that here today. Jim Selby has talked about it a little bit. Ray has talked about it. Tim has talked about it. So I think they're going to be a player that augments what we currently have. take away from. I think that is their goal, as I understand it in my conversations. As I said, George McClellan has been an active member of LIFT, and he's been a very helpful participant all the way through. So I don't think they're looking for any special favors nor expecting any, nor would they be treated any differently than any other ISP. But it's a really good point you brought up, Tony, and I'm glad to have a chance to clarify that.
Commissioner Answergi.
Well, the contract that we were given on this topic was to give them free space on our towers. And that is different than the other ISP providers. And, from my perspective, the tribe is out there, they strung the fiber, and they're in the process of, they're spending between $4 and $5 million stringing fiber out there as a backbone. And, they're in the business. They're going to be out there selling that service, and they came right out. The chairman came right out and said that they intend to go after the county building here as part of their business. So, they're going to have to compete for that with our current structure, which I assume is, we have, I believe, charter fiber right to our building already, don't we, Matt?
We do have charter AT&T and Grand Traverse Band fiber. The Grand Traverse Band fiber is dark at this point, but they have already reached the sheriff's office with their fiber.
So, my point here is we shouldn't be giving space away on the tower to one ISP provider that we don't do for everybody else. So, if we're going to give a discount to, encourage people to, get that capability out there to more of our county, I agreed with that, and that's what we're doing, but we shouldn't be giving it away different from other providers. That was my point. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rushton had her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to bring the attention to the executive document that we received on May 12th. And what concerns me in this document is this came before us to authorize the tower lease agreement. And in the body of the document, the statement, negotiations on the tower agreement language have just begun. So I have a problem with this being brought to the board even before we know what the lease language is. And as we have gone through this educational process today, we have seen that there may be a problem with the language in one of our historical leases. So I would just like to say, before this board continues to recommend approval or to approve a lease agreement, we need to see the language. So if we're not ready to see the language in June, this needs to be postponed until we have that language, so we know exactly what we're getting involved with. Thank you.
Commissioner Sudas Little.
Yes, thank you. Just picking up on Commissioner Answergi, I picked up the same point that you were referring to and talked with Matt about it. And he was explaining that that is part of a negotiation for other services that they are doing. That contract is not complete. Matt, you can comment on that, but it wasn't offering free space as I understood it. He was looking at an exchange of services for allowing certain space being compensated in return. Whether that ends up being in the contract or not, I don't know, but it wasn't just giving them free service. But I'm glad I questioned it too, not knowing when I saw it.
Mr. Answergi, did you have a statement about that?
Which Mr. Answergi are you talking to?
I'm sorry. Well, then you're Commissioner Answergi. So, Matt.
As far as the negotiation, it was a first negotiation. The tribe has expressed their plan to expand fiber throughout the county and identified bringing it to fire stations and township halls and all the county towers. What I did was a bit aggressive, saying that they should complete fiber to all the towers within the first term. That's only 5 years. I fully expected them to come back with another negotiation to where they wouldn't be able to fulfill all that, to where monthly rent could be included as a negotiation.
Commissioner Answergi.
Again, referring back to what the tribe has already publicly stated, they're in the business of going out there after this business. And just, I don't think we should be giving them something just because they say they're going to do something that they're going to do anyway, just because that's the business that they're going into. It's like we're giving them something for nothing. They say, oh yeah, if you string the fiber out here, we won't charge you for the monthly charge to put, like we do all the other providers, to have the equipment on our towers. But they're in that business. They're going to have to do that anyway if they want to be able to, sell space along their backbone to other ISPs, or if they do it for themselves anyway. It's just part of how you do the business. So I don't necessarily agree with this going in that direction. I would prefer to treat them just like we do every other ISP out there, because that's what they said that they're going to be doing.
Commissioner Rushton, did you have another statement? Yes, go ahead. You gotta unmute.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I did not hear anything that Patricia said, but we can move on from that. I will make the comment that I agree totally with Commissioner Answergi. I do believe that it's an advantage to the project that the band is working towards to be on all 5 of our towers. And I do believe at some point they will not be able to move forward readily without being on our towers. Now, in the future, they may decide to put up their own towers, but in today, I think the need for our towers is paramount for their project. I agree. I don't think they should be treated any differently than any of the other ISPs.
Okay, thank you. Any other statements or questions? Seeing none, then we move down to E. I think does that address Aspen Wireless Co-location Agreement, Matt?
Yeah, I would like to move that to the June meeting so we have time to clarify and negotiate further with Aspen Wireless.
All right. Thank you. So then we would go to E, which is a potential approval of the Federal Economic Development Administration grant. Commissioner Sudis Little, did you want to address that? You're still on.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. First, I do want to take the opportunity to thank Tommy Hills and David Edelstein from Lyft for participating today and providing the update, and Matt for all of his work in this, and the ISPs, all of you for participating. And I'm sorry that Tom Stevenson was not able to rejoin us, but as Commissioner Wessel commented, the Connect Michigan, which is part of the Public Service Commission, has been really helpful to this whole effort. And we just can't thank them enough for their help and participation. The Leelanau Peninsula Economic Foundation, Leelanau Internet Futures Team committee members, I thank them hugely. They're a hard-working group of volunteers, many of who gave up a lot of their Memorial Weekend to help put all these materials together, and so that we would have them today, and others that are working on the grant and on a new survey that we just launched. We are not ready to move forward with the grant yet because we felt we needed one additional piece of information. I know many of you will look through the action plan, the survey results, and the LPF initial survey that we put online for you. And you can see some of the data that will be backing the grant. Now, again, this grant LIFT is just doing the work on it for the county. It'll actually be coming from Matt Ansorgi and it be a county grant because it's going for county assets and will benefit the county, of course, in being able to utilize those assets. The survey I mentioned to you, what we felt we were missing current data on home-based internet users from businesses. And I want to give a huge thanks to the Edmund F. and Virginia Ball Foundation, who stepped up very quickly and provided funds. We just surveyed 1,049 people asking about internet use. These are business owners who do business as, meaning DBAs, and we're hopeful with the word getting out that this is being done, that others will join in and do it by internet, but it will give us needed information as to who is working from home that we don't have now. We've got great information on agriculture. We've got great information from the schools and from general businesses in terms of need and what's out there, but we don't know as much about home-based business. And now we know that a lot more people, given the COVID-19 emergencies, have gone to that mode of working. So that's what we're doing now. We should get those responses back, I'm hoping, starting Monday. And as quick as we can do a little analysis on it, we'll include that in the grant and move forward. But that's why we didn't present a grant to Matt or to anyone for review, but we'll be doing that quickly and give you a lead time of at least a week so that you'll have a chance to read through and format any suggestions and questions that you might have. So with that, unless there are questions, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
I think Patricia covered all the bases we have with this EDA grant. Having this additional information for the complete submission will work in our favor, and will also give the commissioners a little more time to be able to look at this over in June.
Thank you. Any questions or statements? Commissioner Rushton.
Yes, I had a quick question in regards to the tower location. One would be on the government campus, and the other one, I believe there was discussion about it being placed in Glen Arbor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the property that's going on in Glen Arbor is township owned. Is that correct?
That is correct.
My next question is, if we erect a tower on township property, will we then be paying Glen Arbor a rental fee for the construction of that tower on their property?
There will be some sort of compensation that will work similarly to how we operate the Maple City, Omena, and Northport towers. Omena, or the Northport Tower, is on township property. We simply have revenue sharing with all the co-locations on the tower. With Omena Tower, it's a revenue share. With Maple City, there is a land lease and revenue share. So there will be something along those lines with Glen Arbor Township.
So that will all play into our return on our investment. And that's the point I was trying to get to. So as we move along with this project, I would like to see the numbers for the return on investment for this kind of, what does our revenue sharing percentages look like? What does our land fee look like? And how does that affect the ROI? So I'm putting that out there, letting you know that that's information that I'm going to be looking for.
Commissioner Sotis Little.
I think that's important information to have, and with that, we'll also include the ROI terms of who will be receiving service that currently does not have good service in that area. So I think both points we want to look at and weigh very carefully, because there is such dearth of service in that area right now, which is one of the reasons why it was important to look at a means of erecting a tower in that area. So we'll get both ROI from a business standpoint, but ROI from a human standpoint in terms of who is now going to have excellent internet in terms of businesses and residents and schools.
Commissioner Rushton.
And thank you for that, Patricia, because that is an important factor in that. However, as been discussed over the last month or so since COVID, there's been a lot of discussion about what county funding is going to look like over the next year to 3 years. So this is a large investment for the county. Granted, I don't believe that this is 100% funded in this grant. Is that correct? Do you know?
No, actually, I do know. I do know, and we don't know. The way they're handling this, since it's part of the CARES package of funding that's coming out, they're doing an individual assessment. So they take into consideration the impact on the community, and then it will be either zero match, or it will be potentially possibly up to 20%. But that's why we were looking at both towers, because right now the county is looking at paying in total the cost for the government campus. So if a portion of the total cost would be the match, then that would mean the county would benefit by having the rest of that expense for constructing the tower on the government campus covered, and would not be paying for that, and the cost for the Maple Hill would also be covered by the grant. Does that make sense?
It does. And that would be great if we could, get that share down to 0%, but either way, it will be a cost savings for the county. But is 20% the maximum?
As I understand it, yes.
Okay.
I will be meeting soon with the gentleman who will be handling the grant for Michigan. And we'll probably have more information at that point in time, but that's my understanding as to how the grant is being administered. And we're in the Chicago region, which is region 2. And so each, as I understand it, each state coordinator for this grant is setting those particular terms and doing it on a case-by-case basis. So hopefully I can share more information after I've had a chance to meet with that person.
Okay, great. I will wait to hear more information in June. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or statements? Okay, seeing none then, I would move on to public comment. So we do have a number you can call in if you have public comment. The number is 231-256-8103. That's 231-256-8103. If you had any public comment, please call into that number. Hearing none, we'd move on to commissioner comment. Commissioner Lautner.
Thank you. Well, I kind of have a question. I've been trying to come up with all this in time. The three-way split we had with the structural analysis for the tower. Who are the three?
There's actually 4. Cherry Capital Connection, Aspen Wireless, Agra Valley, and Elevate Net.
Oh, okay. So that was split 4 ways, not 3?
4 ways.
All right, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Rettenbach.
I thought it was a very informative meeting today, and I'm really looking forward to progressing with the, I'm sure I use the right terminology here, the relay to fixed wireless, because I think that has been pointed out, having fiber to every premise in the county is beyond real for how many years going forward. And so I think it's really important that we move along with the grant application and have the opportunity at this time to expand internet and fast internet, via internet to all people in the county. As we've seen with COVID-19 and what's been going on, the increase is only going to be greater moving forward with the ability to communicate via the internet. So it was a very interesting meeting, and look forward to June and hope that we'll have all the grant information at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just had, in listening to this, I had one thought when Mr. Selby talked about Miles Kimberly, you know, and I thought there's county property there, and especially with when they talked about the students and them having the lack of access, that, you know, maybe we can use, as we go through this process, think about using county properties, you know, whether it's Veronica Valley or Miles Kimberly, you know, or, you know, I don't know about Old Settlers, but, you know, there's different places where it might be okay that we put up a tower that would help those areas that don't receive it. I'm not saying we do it, but, you know, there's something that we can look forward to. Even the county could maybe buy property, whether it's in the Northport area or something that we could put up towers. But if that can get the students to get the internet to the students, that might be something viable, but the cost might be too much as well. But it's just a thought that came to me, and I thought I'd just make a comment about that. Commissioner Ansel.
Thank you. This is a question for Matt. I don't know, as the emergency manager, do you have a map of where all the fiber is strung in the county today, both the backbone and individual fiber lines?
No, I do not, and that has to do with a lot of the fiber companies consider that to be proprietary information. So it's very difficult to be able to know exactly where AT&T runs their fiber or Charter runs their fiber. Charter more so is a little easier to figure out, but when you get to Merit and AT&T and all the other providers, it's more proprietary information, and they do not publish that.
They don't. They are not required to provide that to you as the emergency manager?
No, they're not required.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, Mr. Selby, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I
Go
just
ahead.
want to say that we do have, yes, we have fiber. By the way, our offices are literally across from Miles Kimberly Park. I thought about it to offer an outdoor Wi-Fi access point out there. I've got 2 children that are in Glen Lake schools. We don't have broadband at our home. So, you know, it would be really nice to do something like that, to have a outdoor guest Wi-Fi. And also, you guys as county leaders here, counties are doing this. Steuben County has a fiber network. So don't think small. Don't think that you have to do, our county is actually pretty small because we're not a big square like we're working with Branch County right now. And even rural areas like Conviz Township out by Battle Creek, where there's only 700 dwellings in the entire 36 square miles, it still gets return on investment to run fiber. So you guys don't think just towers and wireless is your only answer, because it really isn't. And Antrim County, I'm working with Northern Lakes Economic Alliance, and they're doing a bunch of fiber in their county. So with this federal deal. So, think bigger, because we need it ultimately. That is critical infrastructure. And there's my 2 cents. So, there you go. Some public outdoor hotspots would be great in our parks, and go fiber. So, and Aspen Wireless is our last name. So we're 95% of our business is fiber optic nowadays. So there you go.
Thank you.
Chris
Any
Schaefer,
other commissioner?
something to add if you had some time.
Go ahead.
You were just speaking about areas that potentially could use tower or better coverage. We've had a lot of clients north of Northport. That is a quite rural area with minimal connectivity and a lot of topology to deal with. There is that Northport tower that we do have the contract for. However, further north of that, and especially because that tower is so short, north of that tower is something that would be beneficial to look at. And I know a lot of residents are a little contrary to erecting new towers, but that could be something we could collectively look into.
Thank you.
This is Tim Malone, if I could just add to the fiber side of things. Right now you have 5 companies doing fiber in Leelanau County. And there are 2 ways you can find where the fiber is. Every fiber build has to ask for a road commission permit. And that road commission permit is at the county level, and then there are state permits. Those permits are public knowledge. Pole attachments are easy to find because they're on the pole. And if you know what you're looking for, and that's how we identify it, what is available in Leelanau County. So there is an effort involved, don't get me wrong, but all that information is publicly available. It just may not be in the emergency side of things. Thank you.
Commissioner Answergi.
I was just going to ask anybody if some of these other technical experts, what's your opinion on the Starlink program? They're supposedly coming to northern Michigan in the northern United States. Any feedback on that?
That's a very intriguing situation. There has been some interesting recent developments with latency problems and a lot of types of things. I'm quite surprised, honestly, that it was approved in the first place, just because of the clutter in space and potential visibility of things from terrestrial observation points. But I believe the latency is their biggest issue right now, and they are not getting approvals that they were hoping to get based on what they have been seeing for responses and just stuff from their tests. And I believe quite recently the FCC analyzed their proposal and indicated their latency issues were well above and beyond what they were trying to promise. And I don't know how they may pivot, but it's intriguing just from a technical aspect. Even though they would be a competitor, I think it's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, latency is
Sure.
the number one issue.
Commissioner Wessel.
Yes, I wanted to thank Patricia for her leadership, but ask everybody that we've got a lot of work to do in the next week or two with this grant. And I understand that priorities are given to those grants that go in first. So as we work on that grant, I think we're very open to having anybody give suggestions through Matt or through Chet on concerns or ideas or issues, because when we get that grant done, we're going to want to get that in and be one of those first counties asking for our federal dollars and state dollars to better connect. So rather than wait until we're all done, I would invite, and I think Patricia would invite, any questions, concerns, or ideas. Let us hear those in advance through Matt or Chet, and we'll make sure when we do the grant stuff that we address those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, I would say we are adjourned. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Lautner, saying goodbye. All right.
Goodbye.
Oh, thank you. Look at that, with a heart on it too.
Of course.